Hello, I bid you a warm welcome to this very deep and exciting series entitled Karma, Destiny and Choice. The law of karma has always been in existence, and while many have an inkling about it, scarcely a few grasp its depth and full meaning, as it is the way it is. Only a handful understand how to best use this law to their full advantage. This series is designed in such a way that we look at this all-encompassing and complex law from a myriad of angles. Perhaps you may have had questions about why a certain event unfolded in your life, or why someone has entered or left your immediate sphere. We look at why the world has become what it is. We endeavor to answer each and every question you may have about this law, the question of destiny and daily choices. We consider how it affects all areas of your life, including your mind, your body, your wealth, your relationships, your career, and your future. In particular, we look at how the Supreme Soul and the law of karma interface and how this affects you, the individual, in a practical way. Sister Denise, our speaker, is an experienced practitioner of Raj Yoga meditation for over 45 years with the Brahma Kumaris. Sister Denise will provide you with the understanding of this deep law and offer some spiritual tools to ensure that your future is filled with good karma so that circumstances remain favorable to you. Welcome, Sister Denise.
Thank you so much, Magla.
So, the interface between karma, destiny, and choice. How do these three energies meet?
What's important about this series is that we make it clear to everyone that there are three and maybe more energies that are intertwined with each other, and they're all different. Sometimes people think the only thing is karma or the only thing is destiny, but the two are woven together like DNA. And then choice, people are confused. Do we have free choice, or is fate such that we have no choice at all? So the law of karma is operating, destiny is there, and you have many opportunities to exercise your free will and your free choice. So it is quite subtle and quite tricky to understand these three energies, how they operate individually and how they operate together, and how we are impacted by them, and what we can do to make an impact or to influence the direction of our future.
Let us go into the law of karma itself. How does it operate, and on whom is it applicable? And what I'm thinking of is, from when does it start running in an individual's life?
An individual soul is eternal, and the law of karma is also eternal. So it's always been there, it always will be there. At the beginning of your life, you come in conscious that, okay, this is my current life, but the law of karma has operated in the past, far distant past, immediate past, and the arm of karma is very far-reaching. So everything we think and say and do is affected by the past and affects the future. It's also very good to think of the law of karma as seeds. You keep planting seeds. Good seeds produce good fruit. Bad seeds, bitter fruit. You have to eat the fruit.
How does one's spiritual identity relate to the law of karma?
Well, I think it's fairly simple. Your spiritual identity is you are essentially a pure, peaceful, powerful, loveful, blissful soul. But then the law of karma says that every action you perform produces an equal and opposite return. And then your performance is also destined. So there is a destiny laid out for you, but yet, moment by moment, as you are in the present moment, you are free to plant a seed. And whatever you do, the law of karma ensures that you will get an equal and opposite return. So I think that the key practice is to be very conscious of the present, because that's the only time you have freedom.
The present moment.
Yes.
There are individuals who believe that the law of karma applies from birth to death, when the body begins and when the body ends. And you are saying what exactly about that?
Actually, I'm not disagreeing with that, but before this body began, another body finished. In between the end of one body and the beginning of the next body, karma doesn't apply, but often it's just an instant. So during the time that you are in a body and performing action, so you are impacted by the law of karma, and you need to operate bearing in mind the law of karma.
Does a child accumulate karma? I'm thinking of a person who's under the age of 18 who does something against the law of karma. Does karmic consequences accumulate on somebody who is too young to understand the consequences, whether he is 5 or 15 years old?
It is said in the teachings that we study in the Brahma Kumaris that below the age of 13 you will not be held accountable.
Really?
So the law of karma operates, but it really is that when you reach the age of reason and you are aware of what you're doing, which may be younger than that. I remember for myself that I became very, very aware of the impact of what I was doing when I was 6. I think that moment when you become aware of that, it's like you're no longer in childhood, the innocence of childhood, but I remember that, and I remember looking at conscience and evaluating other people's actions and so on. So I think that in a general way, socially you will not be held accountable below the age of 13. And it's also said that people generally cannot remember what they did, any negative action, for example, below the age of 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm. How does the law of karma operate in any given judicial system anywhere across the world? There are laws, both written and non-written. There is a judiciary to see that it is upheld, and there is a police force to see that it is enforced. How does the law of karma work?
Well, the law of karma is self-enforcing, so it doesn't require police, and the consequences of karma will come up in terms of circumstances, but the law of karma doesn't announce when your debt will be up for payment. It comes suddenly. And generally speaking, we see that whatever action you do has an immediate, a midterm, and a long-term consequence, and there will be pure, neutral and impure karma, all of which is impacted by the past. You do not remember what happened before this life, and sometimes something will happen to you in this life which is a result of something you did in some former life, so you will not be able to put the two together. But generally speaking, we find that intuitively you have a sense, and even verbally you may say the words, what did I do to deserve this? And that is an indication that at least on an intuitive or subconscious level, you're aware that this is some sort of payment. Even if you may not know overtly, you do somehow have a sense of it.
It is obvious from what you're saying that reincarnation is part and parcel of the law of karma.
The thing is this, there are many cultures that don't subscribe to the concept of reincarnation. And those cultures do have this idea of as you sow, so shall you reap, but they keep it within a lifetime, which means that there are many things that have to do with former lifetimes that become inexplicable. And so they will say, it's fate, or it's God's will. They will explain it using some other aspect of concept. But if you really want to understand the philosophy of karma, then you also have to understand an individual as a soul who passes through cycles of reincarnation. And those cycles involve ages. And in those ages, there are different energies that rule those ages. So if you want to go into the depth of it, there's a lot of complexity to take into consideration. And most people take it at a quite simple level, and many people interpret it maybe very differently from how it should be interpreted, because they take into consideration ideas which can't be substantiated, and they mix it up, and then it becomes actually quite difficult to manage.
Once I speak or act, does the karmic consequence materialize in my karmic book immediately?
It can be immediate, mid-term, or very far in the distance. Depending on what kind of action you do, the consequence is equal and opposite. You can actually calculate what kind of result you want and do the karma that produces that result. And so it is said in our teachings, if you want the very, very best possible karmic return, then it means you have to do such action that has a consequence on your health, your intelligence, your purity, your social situation, your wealth, all of these things. And you can do such karma that produces positive result in all these areas, including your quality of intelligence. Everything that happens to you is created by your previous karma.
If one has to read the news of today, it is quite shocking what the world has become. There's scarcely an individual in any country in the world, or groups of individuals or countries at large, who are not involved in conflict, sorrow, famine, drought, floods. Mother Nature's acting up, people are acting up. Is that the karmic load that we're carrying? My question is, what went wrong?
As we said, this series is not just only about karma. So the situation is not ascribed only to the laws of karma, because along with that comes destiny. It is called a play of happiness and sorrow, victory and defeat, success and failure. These pairs of opposites are included in the play, half and half. The play takes the form of a cycle which begins fully empowered. Everything is in full power. People are empowered, nature is empowered, everything is integrated and working well. And over the course of time, it gradually disintegrates and things gradually fall apart. So contrary to most people's opinion that everything is progressing, we will see that actually everything is gradually losing power, losing its integrity, as is described in the laws of entropy. So one of the reasons why things are going wrong at this time is because of people's karma, and it's also going wrong because of the effect of time, which causes everything to get weaker, to age, to disintegrate. Disentangling these two things is very tricky, because you cannot say which bit is which, because they work together. And so there are some things that you just have to say, well, it is destiny. It's not anybody's fault. There are other things where you can see that there is an element of personal responsibility. You know, in the debate about climate change, the debate is this: is climate change human-induced, or would it have happened anyway? And there are schools of thought for both sides. And what we can say from the angle of looking at karma, destiny, and choice is that we have made some very unwise choices, which has resulted in very serious karmic consequences that have affected the integrity of the planet and the ecological systems. But we will also say that anyway it's aging, and anyway everything is going to lose integrity and lose power. For example, the increasing storms in the sun is very difficult to say this is because of human karma.
True that.
But it's affecting us. It could take out the internet any time, and then where would we be?
True. Once one understands the law of karma, that means there is a responsibility on an individual. How does one proceed forward? What is the way forward? What comes to mind is the scales in any Department of Justice anywhere in the world.
There are two things you have to take into consideration. And as you come into each present moment, there are moments where circumstances require you to act. And there are other moments where you can see very clearly there is nothing you can do. And the only thing you can do is do nothing, because it's completely out of your hands. And a person who's working to understand these energies of destiny and karma, you have to be able to detect, is this a moment where I can do something, or is this a moment when I can do nothing? Because they appear, they disappear, they intertwine with each other. And this is why you cannot say everything is karma, because if everything is karma, you have free choice at every moment, but you don't.
I didn't get that. You do, but you don't?
If the only energy involved was karma, the implication of that is that you have free choice at every moment. But the fact is you don't have free choice. There are so many circumstances where clearly there is nothing you can do. It's out of your hands. That means the energy of destiny is dominant at that moment. Sometimes karma is dominant. Sometimes destiny is dominant. Sometimes there's nothing going on at all, and you are free to create anything because there's nothing to respond to. That's also there.
So one needs a lot of wisdom to be able to see?
I think wisdom, but I think a perception where you can just perceive what type of moment is this, what type of moment is that. You know, in the addiction recovery program, there's something called the Serenity Prayer.
Yes.
And this describes it quite well. And the last line is, grant me the wisdom to know the difference between when I can do something and when I can't. Because so often there's nothing you can do. You'll use your energy trying to do something that's never going to work. That means you lose all your energy. Sometimes you're required to do something, an act of courage or whatever. You hesitate, you don't do anything, you miss the moment.
We'll talk more about this in future episodes. But if one finds oneself in a bad situation, and by bad I mean hopeless situation, either in respect of your body, your relationships, your finances, your life as a whole, what does one stand to do? Are you to curl up and die like a victim? Or can you act? Should you act?
Well, let us look at it in terms of what I was just saying. You have to try to feel, is this a time when I can do nothing? So do nothing. Wait for circumstances to shift and then do something. Because if you're struggling against circumstances where you can do nothing, it's much better to just recognize it and do nothing and wait for the moment to change. You see, because time is not just 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. It's a man-made thing. But there are moments in time where nothing is possible. And there are other moments in time where anything is possible. What do you want to do? Do it now. This is the moment. There are other moments where you are required to do nothing because nothing is possible. So you have to have a very well-developed perception for what is time. There's this expression, the call of time. Mm-hmm. What is the call of time here? What is the word of time here? So that you are in tune with time. And that you, when it's a moment where you are required to act with wisdom, act with wisdom. When it's a moment where the doors are open, anything you want is possible, you know. And for example, when things are a bit chaotic there's no fixed leadership or nothing is fixed in stone, you're in transition period, you can do anything. It's a very creative time. But then there are other times where everything is like fixed. And in astrology, they talk about fixed signs and mutable signs, because in astrology they have this sense of where things are possible and where things are not possible. And when something's not possible, the wise thing is to be quiet and do nothing and wait for that time to pass. And then a time when you can do something, it will come. So there's a sensitivity to moment.
At face value, us humans use the word victim and perpetrator in criminal law, for example, and in police investigations. As far as the law of karma is concerned, is there such a thing?
Well, there's also this idea that because you're creating karmic accounts with people, you may be a perpetrator and make somebody into a victim in one scene of karmic aggression against someone. And then the circumstances will reverse. Maybe it's another life, and then the one who was the victim becomes the perpetrator, and vice versa. So this sort of thing also happens because the law of karma is all about equalizing the debt.
Is that its purpose?
It's not that it has a purpose, it's the way it operates. Because the law of karma is not a person, it's a phenomenon. And like the law of gravity.
So the law of karma, does it need someone to operate it?
No, it's automatic. It's a machinery that corresponds exactly to the laws of physics.
The reason I'm asking this is because many believe that it's God who's pushing the buttons.
They do believe that because they think that if the law of karma operates by itself, then God is redundant, and they don't want to make God redundant. So they make God
So people give him a
victim.
job? People give him a job?
Always giving a job. Would you do this? Would you do that? Would you give this? Would you take away that? But they don't understand God. So God is a whole another energy, another being. God is a being. The law of karma is not a being.
Okay, so God is someone and the law of karma is something.
It's not an object, it's a phenomenon. It's the way the cookie crumbles, you can say.
Right. Okay, so let's bring this conversation to a close, because we'll take up the many concepts and aspects of this law in future episodes. So I know that you at home have more questions than answers. Don't worry, don't stress. Sister Denise will endeavor to answer all of your questions that you may have on the law of karma. And as you see, what she touched on today was just the tip of the iceberg. What I took from today's episode is that the law of karma is the equalizer, and I'll go so far as to say the great equalizer. So do sit back and enjoy the series, and we will see you again soon. Take care. Goodbye.